It is 2026 and every marketing team is at least talking about AI at this point. Like they'd have to be, I don't know, in a nonprofit higher ed's marketing team to maybe not be talking about AI. I'm trying to think of like the most far behind industry there is, but even those people are talking about AI when it impacts marketing right now. If your team isn't already playing with AI, isn't already using their own chat GPT account, it's one of those things where every marketing leader is thinking about how to implement it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is how to actually help your team adopt AI wisely. And I'm here with Courtney Baker, who's, I think it's your third, maybe fourth time on the show. I don't know. You've been on here a number of times, but it's been a while.
It has been a while.
Courtney, it's good to have you again. I know you are the CMO of KnownWell, which is a tech company that focuses on the service industry and helping them scale their businesses. But today, I'm looking forward to having a conversation about what it takes for marketing leaders to actually equip their teams with AI and doing it well. So let's dive into the first question. It is, what are the most common ways AI adoption goes wrong with marketing teams? Because everybody's tried it.
Yeah.
Many have failed and say, blame it on AI. So I'm wondering, what are the most common things that you're seeing across other marketing leaders implementing these kinds of tools out in the space?
Yeah, I would say right now, I think I see still a lot of people stuck in experimentation for like experimentation sake. And I think there was a season where that was awesome. It was great. And everybody should have been experimenting. But I think we've moved past that phase where your team is going to get tired of just experimenting. What we need to focus on now is taking problems, documenting what those problems are, and then saying, can we use AI to solve this problem? I would say that's one area. I would say the second area that I see AI adoption fail is not bringing the AI to your work streams. For example, with people, I always ask, like, hey, what's your meeting cadence? Like, what drives your marketing team forward? And then how are you taking AI and applying it? It could be a lot of different things. It could be AI-driven intelligence for your pipelines, for example. How are you bringing those into those meetings so you're driving the action, the cadence of your operations with AI? And instead, it stays totally outside of the natural workflows of your marketing team. And so then it's just, remembering to go use those AI tools or, like trying to build new individual habits. But when you build it into the fabric of your marketing organization, it's going to make it much easier for your team to adopt AI and for it to become just like a default that your team uses. So those are two areas where I've seen it go wrong lately.
It's funny. I think I saw Ethan Mullock post recently of the best practices from like a year ago or 2 years ago of like, set up your team, give them some tools, give them some time to experiment. Like people are now doing this. Most companies are now in experimentation phase and we're all looking at it. At least those who are like in it all the time would be like, yeah, you're a year behind on this one.
Totally.
Like experimentation's not enough. If you missed that period, you now have to catch up because you were now behind about a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know. It really depends on which industry you're in.
And listen, I do get it because some of those experiments failed or were hard. Listen, I remember the first time I was trying to build an agent in Make. I was like, this is
so
terrible.
Hard. So hard.
This is, and I obviously work with a lot of very smart engineers and developers, and they were just doing things that I dream about doing. But, I think when you get into these experiments and they don't work, you're less inclined to do it again. And so just if you get stuck in that phase, I think it's always helpful just to go back to the problem, find one big problem that you can solve using AI. And I think that can get you back on track.
Yeah. I remember at the beginning, even social media was like experimentation, right? Remember like in the
Yeah.
early days of social media, people were like, I don't want to post what I ate for lunch. Right? You're like, well, it kind of took us a while to to define the best practices, right? Of what
It's a great
became
point.
standard 101 content marketing, social media,
Mhm.
posting things that are helpful, posting
Yeah.
things that are maybe resonating, posting things that are maybe newsjacking if you want to start to like follow the trends. Like all these things became standard. They took a while. Some came from other industries like the news cycle. Others had to just be invented. But like we're just getting part of I feel like we're just getting past the early phase of AI where we
Mhm.
don't have any idea what we're doing. And now we have some like good parts in place. So now I have to ask you, like, what does success look like? If they're now doing it, what are the teams that are doing well now doing? How do you know AI has really become part of a team's day-to-day work?
Yeah, I think it's really a lot of not having to drive that change with leadership. When that is happening organically within your team, when your team starts to come to you with ideas, or even, hey, here's this AI platform that I want to use. Here's the use case. Here's the outcomes that I'm looking for. Versus you having to say, "Hey guys, let's get this problem. Let's get this let's drive this action." I think that's when you know, hey, this has shifted. And then I would even go back to what I said earlier with your meetings, when the intelligence that you're using to run your marketing, when you start to have AI involved in those cadences, I think you can start to say, like, hey, we have made that shift from experimentation to really utilizing AI to drive our marketing function.
I feel like one of the big things that we've run into is this custom GPT thing. That's kind of been tried and true. Still not a lot of people using it or using the instructions in projects or using Claude projects or using Gemini gems, all the same thing generally,
Yeah.
just different branded versions. But I almost feel like I could probably go to a team member and be like, what's the most normal thing you do that is time consuming? Like thinking, and you have
Mhm.
a process for it. Maybe you don't even understand what the process is, but let's figure out how AI can help at least speed up something you do daily or weekly and see what we can do there. And then trying to do that with each specialty of your team. There's probably something there that's better than experimentation because it's at least being coming back to like what they actually do rather than
Yeah.
trying to invent new stuff that they don't do, which is usually a waste of time. Is what experimentation leads to is it invents new work that is now busier.
Yeah, it's true. And especially when it's, a busy season and then it doesn't work. And then it just feels like a waste of time. I actually said this on our podcast. One of my hot takes was that we would spend more time using AI last year than save time, because of that reason. It was so many AI tools. We don't have front runners yet for those things. It's exactly what you just said about social media. Over time, we kind of figured out what works, what are the plays, how do you do this, which tools do you use. You just knew, like, this is the best tool, I'm going to use that best tool. Right now it's like the wild west where it's like, oh, okay, I want to do this thing, but I could do that thing with like 12 different options. It's not an obvious, this is the best tool to use for XYZ. And so we end up spending more time. I do think it's getting a little bit, do you think it's getting a little bit better?
Yes, absolutely.
By the way, on the custom GPT, I'm absolutely with you. I'm still shocked how many people. Some of my favorite things about AI are these custom GPTs. I mean, literally save
Yep.
me so much time. I don't think our CEO would mind me saying this, but for example, I have a custom GPT in his voice. So simple, like it's a simple thing, but it saves both him and me a ton of time when I utilize that. We have one for lead qualification. We want to know more about the lead. We have it built, we
Yep.
drop it in, we know
Yep.
everything we want to know about that lead. Again, very simple things that just took some time to do the thought work and every single day produce returns for me. So, yeah, PSA for everybody.
Yeah.
Build those
And I always
GPTs.
tell people, like, until you've had like until you've built like a dozen custom GPTs, like, don't worry about make, don't worry about NAN, don't
Yeah.
worry about vibe coding anything. Cause like, and just to make everybody feel better, if you've tried make or NAN and failed at it or felt like you were dumb, I know developers that are extremely intelligent that say they'd rather just hand code it than use make. Okay. That's how confusing those tools are.
That does make me feel better. But yes, thank you for that. I will take that
They
one to
look
heart
simple, like,
myself.
oh, I should just be able to drag and drop the menu. And then you get the menu options. You're like, frickin', I don't even understand what it's saying.
Yeah.
You're like,
And
I don't
it's
know.
especially hard when it's like it's
Yeah.
a platform when you're using Make with like something like HubSpot that I feel
Mhm.
like pretty good,
Yeah.
like a decent user of. And I'm like, I'm completely lost here.
Yeah. It makes you realize how much work platforms like HubSpot and High Level or the marketing automation systems have dumbed it down for us marketers to be like, yes or no, left or right, good. I don't know. Like they made it simple enough for us to be like, go in there and actually make choices versus like, now you want a Boolean search for, you're like, what the heck is he talking about?
Yeah.
What's the IP
Yeah.
address? You're like, there's an IP address for this?
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. But I mean, it's gonna come. I actually said this. I was with a company last week. They were working on some AI things that they were doing in the organization. This wasn't necessarily tied to my role at KnownWell. And we were talking about whether or not how much they needed to add about agents in their policy. And I was like, right now it's really not. It's like what you said. Like to the common person, it's challenging. I'm glad that we can all establish that transparently. It's not the easiest, but it could come tomorrow, Dan. We could have some kind of platform that does make it easy enough
Yeah.
for me to just be like pulling the things in like it seems like it should be. And the whole ball game changes.
I think this is my prediction, but platforms like NAN and Make will just go away and we'll just vibe code them because we'll
Oh,
be like, hey, when every time this application, here's the password for it or whatever it needs. Every time this happens, I want these things to happen. And it'll go and be like, okay. And then it'll maybe even make some advisements and be like, well, when you get to this point, does it want to go left or right? You're like, well, left, and I think we'll just vibe code the automations.
I do
I
love
think that's
doing
what's going
that.
to happen.
I really listen with our team. Obviously, again, we have data scientists and our whole engineering team. I like to joke that I am a data scientist because if you really, it's just conditional logic, and marketers do that. I'm like I'm basically a data scientist. But I do love when you can code like a calculator that. Now, have my stuff actually ever seen the light of day? No, but I've been able to like hand those things off
Yeah.
to developers, and they're much further down the road than they would have been pre me being able to do that.
So I have a question. My next question, I'm going to tweak a little bit and I'm going to ask it a different ways. I think this will be interesting, but you tell me, there's two different ways you can answer this, but I'm going to twist it. I originally had, if a marketing leader has 90 days, what's the plan? What should they do in the first 2 weeks, the middle and the final stretch, as if you were the marketing leader. But I'd like to ask you, since you're a CMO and if you hired a marketing director who was pretty good with AI, what would your actual expectations be as a marketing leader for where like maybe an AI driven marketing leader could be in 90 days? Like what would your hopes be, beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going to go with the second one.
Okay.
I may intertwine the two, but I'm gonna answer the second one
Yeah.
because what I really care about is outcomes. Period. The end. I want a marketing director that can produce the results that we've outlined as our goals for the company, for their role, for the department. And at the end of the day, the reality is I actually don't care. And I would say this is true for a lot of executives. I actually don't care if they use AI. Now, do I think that they could produce better outcomes utilizing AI? I do think that. But the end of the day, what I really care about is the outcomes that we've set out to achieve. And so, one, I think that's always helpful framing.
Yeah.
Now, if we're not hitting our outcomes, maybe one of the questions I'm asking is, well, how are you utilizing the resources, the tools, the assets at your disposal? Oh, you haven't used AI at all? Okay, well, why haven't we pulled that lever? And so I think that is kind of the series that I'm, dissecting against. But at the top level, ultimately, if you can produce stellar results without using AI because you don't need to, it does not matter to me. Again, I don't think that's the world we're necessarily living in today.
Yeah.
And then I will actually answer your other question too.
What would you do?
With the directors, with my team, I want them to really set an environment that allows experimentation. And what I really mean by that, and I actually think this is true for marketing teams at large, is that we have to lower the fear. If marketing teams, I believe, are in a state of fear, you are not going to produce great marketing. That's my personal belief. And so you have to create an environment where marketing teams can take risk. Those risks sometimes will pay out tremendously for you. There will be times your marketing team, they'll fail. Matter of fact, Dan, we just did something on our team. We ran a new ad campaign with a newsletter. We took a small bet on it. It didn't work. We failed at it. But I am in an environment where we can take those kind of experimentations and everything is great. So I would say first thing out of the gate when you're rolling out AIs, you've got to set the tone that, we are doing this together. There's no fear in this. We're creating an environment where we can take risk. We can try things without judgment. And then you move into, and I'm a broken record here, Dan, you got to start with where the problems are. You got to use real work. We're moving to outcomes, not playing around with new tools.
I remember 2 years ago, I was talking to one of my guests named Bart Kaler. And I think we both had this epiphany that we were using AI, but it really wasn't helping any of our core stuff move faster or better. It was really adding on new stuff that we could do that we're like, oh, we've always wanted to add on these extra things. You know what I'm saying? It just added extra stuff to do. It was faster and it was stuff we wouldn't wanted to do. But now I think it is getting good enough that actually starting to chip into the things that we do regularly. Yeah. And I think you're right. Always aligning it back to does this create value for the customer? Is this actually helping us do better marketing? Is this actually helping us do the core thing or helping us move to the objective? Otherwise, it's easy to get lost in that. And so you keep bringing it back to that point, but I'm like, but it needs to be brought back to because we can all have a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of shiny going on and just keep chasing the next cool thing. Yeah. Kind of like infographics. I know you can make them, but do you really need them?
Yeah. I know we were joking about, me coding something for our development team. I actually think in marketing teams, that's one of the best use cases, even with design of being able to collaborate so much quicker. I always say marketing is a team sport. Well, if it is a team sport and I can hand off the football faster, knowing what the play that needs to be run is, that's incredibly helpful for us producing an outcome faster and scoring a goal. I don't know why I'm making this football analogy other than I've been watching too much football, Dan.
It's that season. We're getting close. So have you run into a situation where you've hit pushback from team members over AI or maybe from other vendors or people that you're working with around job loss, quality worries, or just extra work?
Yeah, I would say the place that I see it the most is people want AI intelligence or signaling to be 100% accurate. And listen, we all want accurate, but the reality is they don't really understand what AI is at its core or what's different about it than, say, SaaS. What the output that my CRM with manual entry data, deterministic data is, and then what AI produces and how those things are different. And so in some ways, I think the pushback is understandable, but I think if you understand the core of what your platforms or your tools are based on, it helps you understand, oh, I'm not going to get a 100% signal or prediction every time. And so I have to change how I think about this technology and how I utilize this technology. And so, this is a very business operations type answer, but that's actually where I see a lot of pushback is not really understanding AI well. I think if you're not deep in this, it's easy to look at it just like deterministic
Yeah.
software, which
Yep.
it is not. And you and I know that, and probably everybody listening. But that is where I see the rub a lot of time. And I think it causes some of that pushback. And again, I understand the pushback, but I have this deep desire of if we can educate more on how AI is different than a lot of the technology that we've used previously in our roles, I think it helps us get past that roadblocker. Do you ever see that? I'm just
All
curious.
the time. All the time.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm like, if we actually made it more deterministic, it would suck. Like it would lose all of its actual creative ability. And now with the reasoning models, they're so freaking good that like I'm doing some market research for a company to refresh on like even making a standard document of voice of customer. I'm just trying to find like how do customers talk about this brand?
Yeah.
It's actually research I did a year and a half ago, and I was using AI then. But now that was before reasoning models, that was before deep research, that was before it was able to actually like run through tons of information and summarize it well. So now it's totally different. I remember now I'm comparing it to market research I did a year and a half ago, and it's better because it can go scour the whole internet for every single testimonial and find the exact language. And I know because I'm like reading this person's books that I'm like, oh yeah, this is the voice of the customer because I can hear the founders leading in it, but I could still hear the individual ones. And of course, I always write my deep research prompts in such a way, be like, show me with links
Yeah.
to spot check it if I need to, because I don't want it to, it can make stuff up. But if you always write your deep research or your thinking prompts with like, hey, and show summarize your work, like show me the actual quotes from the customers with the link of where they said it so I can go check to see if that's what they actually said and spot check it, then it's moving along at a much higher quality. But you do have to know what it can and can't do.
Yeah.
You have to know like, hey, it's still actually I asked it to give me an acrostic for the word pray, and it's like, oh yeah, but pray has 5 letters in it, and you're trying to get it down to 4. And I'm like,
no,
ChatGPT 5.2 thinking, you are wrong.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get that wrong?
I am curious. I have a question for you. So I do think when we like at an individual level, we're using ChatGPT, we never, it's easy like in a big research project like that to get lost in, oh my gosh, is this actually right or wrong, and like evaluating. But I think in general, when we kind of see the responses, we know that it could be wrong, but I think when we take the leap from Gemini or ChatGPT into AI native business platforms or tools, we kind of lose that lens. In a sense, it's like our expectation of ChatGPT being 100% accurate, we don't have. But once we move to enterprise, we put this extra layer of it needs to be 100% right all the time. It's almost, Dan, I mean, I'm not kidding. I have been in many executive team meetings where the CFO brings in, the data from, the last, round of financials. And it just becomes a debate about if the numbers are right or wrong. And so I wonder if we just like to not actually deal with issues and just debate if data is right or wrong. So maybe it's just a business thing, but it's interesting with ChatGPT. We don't have such a stringent, we know we're like, this isn't, but when we move into enterprise, we kind of lose that lens. I'm just curious if you have an idea why we don't hold that as we move into other AI tools.
I mean, I think marketers have been trained to be more data driven to the point where it just became stupid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to say other than like we became so data driven that we couldn't actually like have this thing called discernment anymore. It's like the
That's
numbers
so
needed to prove. I'm
interesting.
like, if the numbers could prove everything, nobody like there would be no art in this. And there's tons of art and guessing and discernment
Yeah.
and gut feeling when it comes to all kinds of business things. Do we want to look at the data? Of course, to inform our gut, to inform
Yeah.
our discernment and decision making. Isn't that why you hired someone who's a senior level? Because they didn't
Mhm.
come with the data, they came with the discernment, and that's still what drives things with AI. In
Yeah.
fact, that's still what makes someone better at AI. Usually that taste and that discernment, because I can look at something and know if it's a
Mhm.
good marketing plan or not for a specific company. I can discern that with ChatGPT. You ever get a response from ChatGPT and you're like, nope, nope, that
Yeah.
wasn't it. And you
Mhm.
realize you're like, I'm gonna refine that prompt. I'm gonna go hit
Yeah.
that edit button. I'm gonna refine it because that wasn't it. But sometimes you enter it and you're like, whoa, you're like, that was A plus plus. I wasn't expecting it to be that good. Chat, digital high five. And it's like, you're welcome, you
Yeah.
know? But that's the discernment, and that's why it's so important. And I think that plays a bigger role in AI because AI can handle with the data better, honestly, than we
Yeah.
can a lot of times. But I
That's
think
so
the
good.
data driven's
That's
just been
so
over marketed.
wise. Yeah. We have become so data driven, but it's how much data do we need to know we got to go fix a problem, or there's something that we got to go make action. Do we have to get it to 100%? No, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, even look at I want to say, I can't remember which book this is, but like some of the basic financial books, like The Millionaire Next Door. I don't know if it was that one, but there's like some of those really basic, like
Yeah.
entry level finance books. I remember even hearing these guys about day trading and stuff. And they're like, really, like, sometimes you just have to know a lot about the industry and kind of be in it, but then like just hear normal people talk about it. If you're hearing normal people talk about it, it's probably a bigger deal than you think. And maybe you're catching it before all the data driven people who is day trading over in Manhattan
Yeah.
are actually picking up on it because you're
Fascinating.
picking up on a level of discernment that the numbers aren't showing yet.
Yeah.
Because by the
That's
time the
good.
numbers show it and have proof, well, the stock's already up high,
Yeah.
right? So that's the most data driven industry of like all time, right? But like
Yeah.
still, the people who know how to play the game are using discernment and
hmm
experience in order to make smart decisions on it. And I
Yeah.
think it's the same thing with marketing. And we've been so data heavy because the martech companies have pushed it so hard and done a good job marketing it. And we'll probably swing back the other way now with
Yeah.
AI. That's my guess.
Yeah. So good.
Um, so with all teams, everybody's got AI as like an agenda item this year. Like we all have it. It's going to be a thing. Every single team. What are some of the basic rules that you see teams need to apply early on? Like what kind of guardrails around brand, privacy, approvals do you see helping teams, but also slowing them down?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think slowing them down is what I talked about earlier of just, it is that FOMO. There are all these new tools, new gadgets, new trinkets, and it's really focusing on outcomes, real problems, like things you've got to solve, or things that you're just like, we could do this a lot faster. Let's utilize AI to do it. I would recommend keeping the guardrails as low as you can, especially to produce, let's say, a V1 of something. You may open the guardrails completely for, hey, to get to a V1, go to town. Before we publish something, we may need to approve it. But really allowing the team to have some room to move. I think, of course, we've got to be careful if you're in certain regulatory environments, the bar is much higher. I would say run it as much like a startup as you can. And as someone in a startup, I will tell you the guardrails are low. And I would say make sure that you practice what you preach. So if you're wanting to have your team bubble up things, find areas that they can utilize AI for, you should be doing that as well. So if you want them to be, kind of that environment of not afraid to bring a new tool or try a new custom GPT, you should be doing that and bringing it back to your team. I would also say when it comes to guardrails, hopefully you have some kind of corporate structure that you can just live within and then lower the guardrails for your team to just work within your corporate structure and move quickly. Again, lower the guardrails, especially for things that you're not publishing externally.
Remember getting a word of advice from a senior executive once, and he's like, never apply big company rules to small companies.
No.
Sometimes you think it's wisdom. You're like, we should all have password managers and password protections and really strong encrypted passwords. You're like, we're a team of 5. We don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I've worked in much larger companies where I've had much more extensive brand guides. Mm-hmm. Even those brand guides are not appropriate for our startup stage. It's too much. It's too high of a guardrail. And I would say, that is a good analogy for what we're talking about with AI, to put appropriate size guardrails for the appropriate size company and regulations that you're working within. And I would default to the lowest guardrails that you can. I also would say, if your company has not gotten enterprise ChatGPT, if you're using Google Suite, if you're not using the Gemini Enterprise, that is a huge unlock and allows those guardrails to be lowered because you're working within your own protected ecosystem.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm sure you're a fan of that, but I'm telling you, that was such an unlock for our team. And we're an AI company.
Like if you're using Gmail and you don't trust Gemini, something's wrong.
Right.
It's like, guys, all your data is already in Google Drive. Like at least give your employees access to use it in Gemini. Because like if you don't trust Google with Gemini, then why are you using Google Drive?
I mean, it essentially becomes your knowledge management. The best everywhere I've ever seen their Google Drive is a mess. It is now, it is like a secret weapon for actually finding the knowledge your team needs in your Google
Gemini
Drive.
is now baked into Drive. Have you tried it yet? It's amazing.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's like what phenomenal. Search should have been a long time ago, but it can do stuff now.
Oh, yeah. No, this is like one of those things that you're like, oh, finally, finally. I'm still waiting that for my Alexa, just so you know. It's still not happened yet. So just keeping it out there, Alexa, I'm watching.
Well, I did have a chance to meet with some enterprise companies at a conference a couple of months ago, and I learned something really. There was upside, but a lot of downsides of working at the really big enterprise companies is that they're not even allowed to use Gemini. They're not in Google. They're not in Outlook. And they're not allowed to use any AI except for some super secure, privacy-focused, in-house enterprise AI that's like a year and a half behind what current models are.
Yeah.
That was a lot. A lot of the enterprise companies are stuck with that. But they also have bigger budgets to be able to afford things that can do some really impressive AI things at scale. Yeah. So there's that too. So, but
yeah. As someone that sells an enterprise AI native platform, I would be glad to talk to them about bringing in intelligence on their clients.
That's it. That's the
shameless
if
plug.
You got budget, like you can afford some of the coolest AI tools out there that are like out of reach for all the small companies. We're all using ChatGPT, which is fantastic and is an advantage of it itself because we can try things faster, but there are some really cool tools, kind of like what you guys are working on.
Yeah, we're using ChatGPT because we literally don't have the people you have to do the thing.
So tell us a little bit more about KnownWell and even your podcast over at AI KnowHow. So I think a lot of people from this show would love to take a listen there too.
Yeah, KnownWell, we created specifically for B2B services firms. We talked to so many firms, Dan. They were all, it didn't matter if they were small or an enterprise company, they were all tracking the health of their clients on a spreadsheet, a red, yellow, green. Their team would come in. And I was always shocked. I would think, no, this company, they're so successful. They figured this out. And we realized we are in a new era with AI that we could actually track this now utilizing AI and have a platform where on Monday morning, you're not having to come in and call all the people or check the spreadsheet. You just know immediately, real time, the objective health of your clients, your entire portfolio. And so that's what we've built at KnownWell. We're extremely excited and proud of it. We'd love to give anybody listening a look at it. I know for all the marketers listening, the top of the funnel is always the emphasis. But if you got a leaky bucket, and we always hate that leaky bucket on the marketing side, it's just hard. It's just more pressure for sales and marketing because the answer is always just pour more water in, you know?
There's nothing more painful than crushing it in marketing and then sales is doing well and you're like, yes, we crushed it.
Yeah.
And then like the churn's so high that you're like, and you need to crush it double now because we can't hold on to customers. You're like,
exactly.
And I hate myself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's, Dan, it kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier. Like we have been drilled on the data. We took these salespeople, think 15 years ago, they just went out and did their thing. They were like lone wolves, or they would come back, they'd sold something that your company doesn't even make. It just was like, it was all about relationships, getting on the golf course. That all changed. We changed that system from being about like relationships and like vibing to data. Now for professional service firms and B2B SaaS companies, that same transition has to happen on the post-sale side of things. It can't just be about vibes, can't be just about how we feel like the relationship is going. It has to be driven from data, from intelligence to know where do we actually stand. And so I'm really excited about that transition that can pull all the way through the entire customer lifecycle and hopefully take a little pressure off us sales and marketing people.
I think there's probably a whole conversation just around how AI can take the qualitative and turn it into quantitative. And not so that we, become so data driven that we can't make a decision without numbers, but so we can actually be properly informed, hold the right systems accountable or the right people accountable. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Courtney, thank you so much for joining me again on the AI Driven Marketer.
Yeah, thanks for having me.